You talk about energy a lot. So it almost sounds like when you were talking it, I mean, I want to say it sounds like some women would be considered just energy vampires. And we know that term. And
Succubus.
yeah, a succubus. I mean, they live off that validation, live off that just wanting to be wanted. And then once they're wanted, they disappear.
Yes.
That's a pretty, I think, a pretty standard protocol sometimes.
Well, girl game is succubus game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Now, the reason that it's not necessarily bad is because all women are succubi. A woman who's very integrated, who has dipped her toes in the masculine, who's learned how to structure herself to an extent, she can actually start to create energy for herself. And so you can say at that point that she may not actually need men. I mean, if she actually believes that, then she's depolarized. But if she's fully integrated, or, we're all approximating these things, then she will want men but not need them. She'll want to surrender to a man, but um, she can exist kind of in her own capacity. And those women are by far the most attractive women. They're radiant. They are the oracles of old. There's this, they are the women that the most powerful men always gravitated towards, because those women did not need those men, but they possessed enormous power themselves. I don't want to get too off topic because you don't see a lot of them in the modern era, but they do exist. They do exist. And when you meet them, it's kind of the experience of sort of like the you can kind of think of yourself as like the Greek warrior going to the oracle. There's almost a sense of fear and trepidation going in there, that these women possess something that is beyond your control as a man. And that's powerful. It's powerful. Women have a lot of power. They've just really lost it by trying to pretend to be men. They need to dip their toes in. They need to understand some degree of structuring, but that's not what men are drawn towards. Men are drawn towards the surrender that happens afterwards.
We
But
got to teach them that.
yep.
Men have to teach women how to attract men.
Yeah, we really do. The good news is that we're kind of doing it indirectly by simply kind of creating our own community and talking about these things. Because the thing is, women are so naturally, even like the women we wouldn't consider to be like super intuitive, women are still naturally much more intuitive than men. And so they are drawn to where the energy is. And so you have all these, soy boys and guys who really just are total losers, yes men. Women are tired of it. And they might be psychologically broken due to the programming, that they can't quite like figure their way out of it. But more and more women are like, I don't like these men. They suck. Well, these guys over here are attractive, even if they're a little bit edgy. So let me like listen to them. Oh, wait a minute. That makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, and I want to emphasize this, not that I really give a fuck, but just for the sake of it, this isn't meant to be disparaging towards women. It's literally just, we're different. It's not bad. I've said this a million times. Men structure women, women destructure, destruct men. And they're both valuable because men can be too rigid. Women break open that, allow us to restructure more cohesively. But women have a very hard time structuring themselves. That's why you see single women go towards big government, because they need something to structure themselves around. There are very few genuine independent thinkers, and men or women, but there's almost none that are women. And the ones that are, you notice, are like ones that are very, Camille Paglia, right? I mean, there are ones who are really different than other women. Esther Perel, right? I mean, women that are very, very different in what they say, because they've actually really like depolarized into the masculine. They really, really get it to the point where they've almost lost their feminine, like Ann Coulter's. You don't look to Ann Coulter for femininity. So men structure women. They structure them. I said this earlier in my show today. Every woman who has gone through a sense of sort of self-improvement and has really held on to it and gotten to another level has had some man, whether it's boyfriend, husband, father, mentor, maybe just a male community, that would help to give her structure. And that's one of the reasons why single moms, in the epidemic of it, something against single moms themselves, but the epidemic of no fathers, which is what Anthony talks a lot about, is such a big deal, because then you no longer have a structuring presence. And what that means is that you get a lot of indulgence with emotions. So, but I do want to go back to that question. You can chime in for a second, Tony. I just got to take a drink of water. But about that succubus question, because I want to make sure people understand that.
Yeah. Let me see. It was Woody. Yeah. Woody says, what is a succubus? Can Pat elaborate on that?
It's a houseplant, Woody.
Yeah. It's a house plant that sucks up water. It's like a cactus, right? It goes all the way back to ancient Greek and Roman mythology, but basically a succubus was this mythological kind of woman that sucked the life force out of a man. And there are women who do this. And, you hear about energy vampires. Women will often do this in a sexual manner. A lot of if you really get like in a lust driven relationship, a very high intensity sexual relationship, they will try to literally suck the life force out of you. I mean, they'll try to make you come over and over and over and over again. And you actually can become spent as a man. I mean, I try not to get too esoteric for some of these things, but there's like demonic aspects to this as well, that a lot of times these women are really actually entity captured, and they know if a man is blind to himself in a certain way, these women can kind of sneak in there and make the guy want to give up his energy to her. And so gain her is all that matters. Sleeping with her is all that matters. Men have a similar version. It's a little bit different, called an incubus. The band Incubus.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a male seducer in what he does to a woman. It's a bit of a different mechanism, though. Yes, do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings. I mean, I don't have to tell this to Michael, because Michael is the goat with these things. But the Bible tells you all this stuff, warns you about these types of women. It warns you about them. The vital message is such a good comment. Female destruction isn't entirely bad. It can free up some areas or exposes chinks in a man's armor that he needs to reinforce. It's 100%. And this is one of the things I'll say to the guys, because I know that this is a big dialogue in this community. Getting burned by a woman isn't bad. It's not bad. Even these succubus women, even the women who really mess you up, they are showing you yourself. Because if you actually understood yourself on a deep level, you wouldn't fall for them. Like when I see a succubus now, and I see it all the time with clients, it's like, I'm like, it's one of these again. And so it's just a matter for me to help direct the client to seeing it in a way that's not going to trigger too much dissonance. That's the sort of art form of it. But I mean, they're very visible. They're very, very visible at this point, and they're not anything to be afraid of, because I know what their energy is like. I know what sort of behavior they do and what they prey upon. And one of the ways I know that is because I can feel how it affects me. It's not to say that like this sort of dark energy, it's not to say that you don't ever stop feeling it. Like, you know what they're, Michael would understand this, Jesus was tempted, right? Like, well, if he was tempted, he felt something. Like, there are certain trigger points that you can hit, but the awareness, you're like, well, I'm not really super interested in this. But the point is that what they do is they reveal where these weaknesses are. And even if she destroys you, so to speak, well, that you were maybe not constructed ideally. So now when you build yourself back up, which this community is really about, it's about building up men.
Mhm.
You build back better. Yeah, you can build yourself back better, right? As a man. And that's the point. And the biggest thing that men need to be afraid of is that they are too afraid to be broken. You should never be afraid to be broken, because a man who's more integrated is ready to be broken at any given moment. He can allow parts of himself to be deconstructed because he knows that's how he makes himself stronger and stronger. So he encounters an obstacle, he can leave something, put something back in. The man who's rigid and tries to fight against it will eventually shatter against the force that he's being put against. As time goes on, you need less and less of that. You become more and more resilient. So don't be afraid of women. Are you going to get hurt? Probably you are going to get hurt. And by the way, this has nothing to do with the laws and the fairness of the laws, but getting hurt by women is a rite of passage. And if you're ignoring that, you might as well check out of puberty. That's my personal perspective. So,
yeah, Vivian has a good question. In fact, it was the question I was going to ask. How do you recognize the succubus, or how do you, if you haven't been completely had the life force sucked out of you like I have once or twice, how do you recognize that or discern that without going through it? Is it possible?
I
Love
think
bombing. Love bombing early on, I think, is a sign of a succubus, especially from an older woman to a younger man. I think that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good, that whole thing with older women and younger men is a really interesting topic. But before I go into that, just, love bombing is very huge with it. It's basically, flattery is very important, because if we're going to be honest, when it comes to emotionally, I would say that two of the biggest things that men have as weaknesses are vanity and lust. And so a lot of what girl game will focus on is those two things. So lust is, one thing, but then you could just view the woman as a whore. Okay, well, we have good sexual chemistry, but that's it. But, oh, well, she compliments me and stuff. She makes me feel like a man, but, I don't have this, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like one gives the whore, one gives the Madonna, right? But if you get both of them together, if a girl, and I'll tell you one of the things that is you have to respect it. You actually have to respect it. But there are some girls, the more intelligent ones, who can go from being one of the filthiest sluts in the world to then persuading a guy that now she's going to be pure. And it may sound crazy to hear it boilerplate like that, but they do it. They do it because they know exactly how to explain, oh, they distance themselves for a bit. Well, the reason is that now I'm really trying to, I didn't want us to have sex again because, I'm really trying to stop doing that stuff and really trying to, purify myself. I've recommitted myself to God and I don't want to, do that. dude, it's like really insane how much it throws guys off. And if you're in it, it's so hard to see your way out of it.